Lovely to see you. Good evening.
Love you too. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Excellent, excellent.
Afternoon, don't you have any wine?
Cheers, cheers. I have some wine here. I have a glass here as well. I have a glass.
Great.
But I prepared some other ones. We tried to do this one. Let me see.
Moritz Kirchberg. Yeah, Kirchberg.
Yes.
Kirchberg. Yeah, I would love to hear about that. But first,
cheers. 乾杯。
乾杯。ドキドキ今日はオーストリアナイトだ。It's the first time for me. Just arrived.
So which one do you have? Which Hausmarke Solera do you have? Is it the Hausmarke S20? 20, yeah. It's based.
Yes,
so
20,
you see
20.
the numbers on the label just reflect the vintages which are in a short form.
Yes.
And the one which is underlined shows the basic vintage, which is 2020. This is the recent bottling. We had yesterday a 4-hour tasting to do some samples for the 21 vintage. And I got the idea with this wine. Moritz was from the very beginning on it, was focused especially on Blaufränkisch. Then we started to do some white wines based on Grüner Veltliner, on limestone. This was the idea. And then, by purchasing, buying, and getting new vineyards, old wines, sometimes it was not just Blaufränkisch. There were some Grüner Veltliner. There were some other varieties involved, like Zweigelt or a little bit of Merlot or Pinot Noir. And the last 30 years, Burgenland red wines, especially from the 19s, beginning with the 90s, it was very much shaped and driven by the idea of blends based on international varieties. Means, the idea of a Bordeaux-styled wine, of a wine which is like a super Tuscan, having some international varieties like Merlot and Cabernet, and adding some indigenous varieties, kind of indigenous alibis. And this was also the time where, in the 90s, where everything seemed to go, everything was possible. New technologies like inverse osmosis and a lot of findings, everything moved into the cellars of the producers. And everything was driven by the idea, a lot of producers were driven by the idea to do something which brings Mr. Parker to cry tears. Like he described his adventure when he had his 47 Chateau Lafleur. So in order to get 100 points, and this was not, from my point of view, this was not a fault of Mr. Parker. It was rather something what you can, if you can blame the winemakers to do everything in the cellar, trying to develop and wines which are coming close to this idea. And it was here as well, kind of Cabernet Merlot, a lot of new oak, a lot of alcohol and sweetness. And in a matter of fact, here it has to do a little bit as well, here in Burgenland, with a little bit of a lack of self-consciousness. It means that people didn't really trust what is their own substance, didn't really trust Blaufränkisch as one of the major important varieties here. And this was one of the problems because so in most of the wineries, an international blend was the top wine, the most expensive wine. So what I did then is just turned everything upside down. So our blends, our international varieties are now in our basic blend. So we really put it, upside down. So everything which is not Blaufränkisch is in our basic wine, in the Hausmarke. But we work so intensely on the quality. We work all vineyards on the same quality level with the same low yields. The problem was what to do with that, and then we were working around a little bit, and then we started to do with the Pinot. We did 100% whole cluster fermentation. With the Merlot, we did also whole cluster fermentation. I've got the feeling Merlot has become much more interesting when you do 40, 50, 60% with the stems, with the whole bunches. The Zweigig is still 100% stamped because Zweigig is a bit of a tricky variety. It's not my cup of tea, to be honest, pure Zweigig. And we add a little bit of Blaufränkisch in order to give the wine also a bit of a interesting character. So, and not only that, then we developed also this kind of Solera idea. So we had always some barrels which were long, some wines which were long in the barrels. So, and then we started with the vintage 2018, first time, this Solera bottlings. So in the matter of fact, even though it's our entry-level wine, to make the long story short, even though it's our entry-level wine, it's one of the most complicated wines we produce because it's in fermentation, then you have the Solera, and then with the blend. It's a lot of fun, and I really like the wine now, and I like the idea of the Solera as a basic wine of ours. And it's a serious wine with a certain lightness, with a certain approach, with a depth in it. You know, the older parts, we have 2 barrels, 4,000-liter barrels, which are the Solera barrels. We take every vintage a little bit out and try to do a blend which underlines a little bit this idea of our house market. So that's the story behind. So it's not about varieties. It's more about a wine which comes from Burgenland, our area, which reflects also these characteristics of this area. And these characteristics are very special. They are very distinct. And this is, if you like what I mentioned in the very beginning, the 90s, I think nowadays it's so important to stand up and say, hey, this was what we've got here in Burgenland. This is perfect because it's so different. So it's more about distinction than about trying to do wines which look similar to a Bordeaux or Super Tuscan or whatever, or a Burgundy or a Piemontese or whatever wine. So we like to produce our wines, which are totally on its own. So we like to produce originals and not just copies. And we have everything in a very profound way here to produce originals. The soil, the climate, the varieties are, in a matter of fact, totally on its own. And this is also the reason why we digged a bit deeper in our substance. At least we released some wines last year. The first time we released single vineyard wines in the history of our winery. So we took a long time to develop those single vineyard wines in order to see what's the capability of these different crus. Because I think if you plan or if you got the idea to do a single vineyard wine, it's crucial that those single vineyard wines has to be something special. They has to be something which makes it worth and outstanding to get bottled.
So you are talking so much on the first. Thank you. I had
You're very welcome, as always.
50% understand.
That's enough. That's okay. I hope very much to meet very soon again, wherever, in Japan or here in Austria.
I'm very, very looking forward to it. Thank you.
Yeah, me
you
too.
are always welcome to Japan.
Yeah, I come.
Yeah.
Let me know when. I'll be there. Ciao.
Great. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you.
ご視聴いただきありがとうございます。チャンネル登録、コメントお待ちしております。またお会いしましょう。